Colu Baloo 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 Baloo.
I don't very much care for his random commentary.
First of all, I was enjoying it. Second of all, I love that the first thing we turned on for the stream, I thought you were just gonna say his name, but instead you just said Baloo Baloo like 6 times in a row. So what a welcome way to start the stream.
It's a change of pace, I think.
I think it's a change of pace as well. Hit it!
Definitely would be a change of pace. Link is posted.
Doing your mom, doing your mom.
What the mom doing?
The words of a scholar.
So does anybody have anything they'd like to say before we get into, showing off the party, dealing with the aftermath of the previous session?
Penis.
All 3 parts of Ray William Johnson's name are nicknames for penis.
Ray?
That's pretty based.
His actual first name is slightly longer than Ray. But
It's
also,
Richard,
yes.
isn't it?
Richard, I'm
Yes.
assuming?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, dick.
I now see
I
why I'm
get it.
over encumbered. Oh my god.
Is it because of your mash of Schmeat?
No, I just sold a merchant 2,000 crowns worth of fucking sticks.
Stick.
You just pull that out the merchant's like, sounds like a good trade deal to me.
I have to buy things from him in order to sell more things to him.
Perfectly balanced.
I hate doing that.
Anyway, shall we actually get into it?
I think so. You've been placed only a short few moments after the murder by Chaos, or at least incapacitation by Chaos before being cleaned off, of the assassins who had recently tried to kill you in the midst of the night, a far distance away from any societies, now with a bit of a bitter taste in some of your mouths and a sense of retribution in others. Akela departs, stating that she won't be a part of it anymore. The rest of you are free to consider your options.
Lorik sets the rest of the supplies that he'd been carrying to the new campsite down on the ground. And kind of just drops to the ground next to them and sighs heavily.
DM, can I have vision?
I am
back,
working on it.
Visioned.
Did the dog eat our campfire?
We finally found out what the dog did.
It says that your token has sight.
Are you just in the darkness, perhaps?
I have dark vision. I guess
Controlled
my
by
There's a modifier in this campaign, remember?
Controlled by
Uh,
Darius. Redeemed.
No. I understand how you would place it as a modifier in fucking whatever. No, that's not how this is
Presenting.
Do you see this, Chad?
Yeah,
I
like
listed in
that.
player chat what I see.
That
Hey,
is
I'm gonna go
correct.
get that.
That is correct, that I can just see my token.
Yes.
Yeah, because you can see the thing on the left. You have vision. It's just that for some reason the thing's not... Why did you get rid of your light? Let's change that. Alright. With the bandits with the assassins no longer at your guys' footsteps, you're now able to more properly retend to the fire. As it becomes back to a normal state.
Now that he's got everything set back down, Lorik is going to shed the rest of his armor that he had meant to start putting back on, because I imagine he got a few pieces on before the fight ended.
That is a fair assessment.
And kind of slumps down next to the fire with more weight and less grace than he usually sits down, or than he usually sits down with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Thank you. Someone understands me.
I'm gonna take the knife that I threw earlier in the fight and deactivate the cantrip from it.
Understood.
Disilluminate it.
I also don't currently have Sunbeam up, so I shouldn't be shedding light.
It shall be removed.
Hate flashlight. Hate flashlight.
The world updates to remember that I am not casting a spell and I go blind.
Rifter just sits down. He kind of puts his like curls up into a tiny little ball and just puts his hood over himself because of how compact he's making himself. The hood is just like completely covering him. He just kind of looks like a little hood with a hood and a blob.
Bird ball. Bird ball. Marvin will be back on the road to Korheim.
How is everyone?
Do you mean aside from the fact that we were just assaulted by assassins relentlessly?
No, including that part.
Well, about as well as one could expect, I suppose.
I'm as fine as you all will need me to be.
It's given me new perspective, to say the least. Well, there is good news. I can safely say we now agree, and I point over to Darius. No chances for him.
Darius shrugs his shoulders. I'll do what I need to do. I'm not going to pull any punches, but should the opportunity arise to give him a chance, I'll let somebody else do it.
Rifter shakes his head, and he just says, "This was too calculated, too precise. I can forgive good intentions with bad results. I cannot forgive this level of intimacy."
Perhaps. But to play devil's advocate for a moment. Sorry, but to play the advocate of Asmodeus for a moment. Would you not do the same thing if you knew there was a group hunting you?
Rifter shakes his head. No. Not like this.
You know, that's such a strange turn of phrase. Asmodeus is a better advocate than pretty much any other being that has ever existed. Why would he want worse counsel?
Well, you take it from the perspective of somebody is doubtful for what he says simply because he is Asmodeus. And so you have the perspective of somebody who is not currently a fiend of the hells. Despite
I've had a couple of his whispers. He's very persuasive even when you know who he is.
Listen, I understand that, but I know all too well that no matter how charismatic one might be, there are still some people that will look at what you are above what you say.
there's a moment where Hate is clearly sizing up Darius and comparing the entirety of his being to the like couple of seconds she's had to fend off something that Asmodeus has described to her, and is like,
Rifter butts in and he says, to play Asmodeus's advocate, I agree. He just says, I agree with what he says. It does not matter the logic. I would not trust it with my life.
there are a few creatures that have been known to get what they want by coming to you and saying exactly what they need to say so that they know that your refusal to follow their words will in fact lead you to do what they want. But honestly, if we're dealing with something like that, I think we might as well just give up because they're going to get what they want regardless.
This is why my people have no dealings with icons.
Rifter nods his head at this final statement, by the way. He's just like, yes, indeed. And he's just kind of scratching his head, like, thinking about that.
Aye, what you describe, Hate, is the exact paradox of the Yuan-Ti people. We try to take from the gods, and in return they take from us without us even realizing. We refuse to do as they wish, try and take the blessings without giving things in return, but they get what they want regardless. Seth in particular is good at that kind of thing.
It's a lesson that very few people ever truly come to appreciate. The coercion of telling you exactly what you need to hear to make you want, in your full rebellious righteousness, to disobey them. And turns out that's exactly what they needed. Sometimes listening to the bad voice on your shoulder is the way to get around what the bad voice wants you to do. Also very complicated.
Then
That's why I
perhaps-
find very frequently morality tends to interfere with decision making, but that could be a byproduct of my biology.
there are some cases though where even in that sort of situation, the ends can't justify the means.
Not all. Huh.
Frequently, I find many people that use the ends justify the means to try and justify actions very frequently have the ends actually justifying the means. They never actually weigh logically what they're doing with what their goal is.
It's somewhat of a quirk of history, if you will. Not everyone who looks at things from the perspective of the ends justifying the means ends up doing horrible actions. But the vast majority of people who do incredibly destructive things across countries and kingdoms tend to at some point utter that phrase.
Rifter just blinks. Like twice.
Hate looks over at Rifter and like hands him some of her rations.
I once
He-
again
Oh, go ahead.
I'm once again no. I once again turn to my people to reinforce the point that I'm making regarding believing the phrase ends justifying the means without actually getting the ends they aim for is they sacrifice, they connive, they scheme, all for power. And what have they gotten so far? They claim the ends justify the means for their own ascension to godhood, and yet any anathema that has existed has died. We're just as mortal. We're just as foolish. We haven't gained anything but commit atrocities unnumbered.
Bloodshed for power's sake does not do anything for anyone. That's all Richter says as he continues to munch on the rations.
Darius sort of shrugs. Well, one could say that you are doing that exact thing, Rifter. It just
He-
depends on whose power. Power of the people.
And he just kind of like gives you like a half like kind of like the look of somebody who smelled something really bad, just kind of like and he just shakes his head and he says, "I don't believe that. The power is best placed in the hands of the people. It's the only place it should be."
You might be right. But then again,
Happens then when the people choose atrocities themselves.
Darius sort of tilts his head. That's what I was going to get at.
Well, then, and he stretches. Somebody else is gonna have to wrangle them in, but the way I see it, that's a lot more likely when there's only one person driving the cart than it is with a bunch of filters through democracy.
And so you see the fundamental rejection of icons.
He
My
nods.
clan has had that sort of thing for ages, appointing people to positions by votes among the executors.
You
And
voted for the Highborn?
not myself specifically, but it's a long-standing tradition that when the previous highborn steps down or perishes, then the Council of Eight selects a new highborn.
Wait a minute. So is Highborn a position you have for life?
It can be.
This intrigues me. I request elaboration.
Can you abdicate yourself, or
Would Lorik know if any highborn in the past have stepped down willingly?
Yes, it's rare. There's pretty much been one case where it was seriously considered, but it didn't end up going through, but it is in one of the codified laws that they are allowed to do so.
I ask, must they abdicate themselves? Are they the only ones that are able?
DM man?
I mean, can you clarify?
I think what he's trying to say
the
is that
only way-
can the council declare that a highborn has to step down?
There is not precedent for it.
Like, so if once a Highborn has been appointed, he can either step down or die.
That's pretty much
In
all
essence,
that's ever
yes.
happened as like a clarification to BBQ. It's basically
Okay.
never been seriously considered to attempt to effectively impeach a highborn, as it were.
Aye, they stay in that position as long as they decide to.
Sounds like an icon to me.
Mm.
A group of people choose to worship one as their leader, and that stays who they worship until it either chooses to not be worshipped or perishes.
Explain where you get this worship from. The highborn is heir to one of my people's greatest titles and heir to the legacy of our greatest hero, but by definition they are not an icon, they are mortal.
You say that as if you cannot kill an icon. If a non-mortal being was appointed as Highborn, would that not make them still Highborn? Mortality
I would
has
have
nothing to do with this statement as Highborn.
That seems incredibly unlikely considering that the highborn has to be one of the Viamnerdi.
Say, for example, in an attempt to bring back a legacy of a hero, a fallen hero, one is resurrected. It no longer has the ability to die of age. It is no longer a mortal being, but it is still one. And you cannot tell me that this highborn that I hear so much about is not revered as a god.
Lorik falls silent for a few seconds. It's not the same.
Can you blaspheme his name?
Rifter kind of butts in, and he just kind of takes Darius aside on this one. He just looks at Lork and says, "I don't know, man. The case seems pretty open and shut to me. I mean, his name is literally Highborn."
One of the few things that seem to be rather consistent amongst the beliefs of people who are talking about their deities is that there's a way to refer to them that's wrong. You can use their name for emphasis because it invokes something more. I'm sure if somebody were to say the Highborn curses you or something similar, that would hold a greater meaning than just Lorik curses you. Even in a culture that doesn't go full blasphemy laws, there are signs that you can tell when respect shifts into a bit of hero worship, and then, well, hero worship is only a couple of steps away from treating them like full-blown gods. Even if the person in question hasn't ascended.
Rifter throws a tiny pebble into the place where there used to be a fire pit, or wherever there used to be the fire, and he just kind of looks over at Stunhoff and he says, "What about you reckon about all this? You seem learned in, fancy mumbo jumbo stuff."
Brunhoff looks up from the empty fire pit, and for the first time, you notice Lorik sitting next to him isn't smiling. I think it's incredible how all of you can talk and ramble about nothingness after the sins of our actions tonight.
Lorik looks down and gazes into the fire.
Care to elaborate?
No. I think my feelings on it are quite clear. I'm going to try and get some rest as he moves over to his tent.
I believe he means the same reason why Aquila left.
By the by, one of us should probably take a wash while we're sleeping.
I'll take watch.
I'll
Not
trade you
looking
off.
in getting sleep anyway.
Well, you should try. I'll trade you off halfway through.
Fine.
As Rifter, he puts his cloak over himself, he begins to fall asleep on his bedroll, and he just kind of mumbles to himself, "This isn't even half of what I'm capable of," and he goes to sleep.
Did Rifter this isn't even my final form,
Yes. Actually, yes.
Kinda cringe, innit?
It do be kind of cringe, though.
No, you.
Screw the rules, I have money.
All right, Kaiba.
Yeah, as the others take their spots to get some sleep, Lork is just tending the fire for the rest of his shift.
So does no one else really engage with Schoenhoff's statements then?
He went to bed. He said no and left.
Yeah. If he doesn't want to talk about it, he doesn't want to talk about it.
Alright.
Oh, I was just going to pester him in the morning.
Lork, would you like to give me your perception?
Oh, fuck. I would not, but I guess I kind of have to.
There are a
Huge.
couple moments where you end up like seeing a bit of movement in the distance and you look and ultimately nothing ever comes of any of them. It's very easy to be on edges. There's a great deal of moving and birds essentially fluttering night owls through some of the different trees. But for the most part, the night is still and soft.
Rifter, get out of the trees.
After what Lork estimates to be about 4 hours, he goes and wakes Darius up.
Alright. Try and get some sleep. Can't have you falling unconscious halfway through the trip.
I'll be fine.
You will until you aren't.
I'll be fine for as long as I have to be.
After only a couple minutes of Darius's watch, you see as like the first bits of the cresting of a sun start to be visible over the horizon as damn it, what's the word? As the sky kind of begins to be gently illuminated in the far distance before the sun's actually able to crest over the horizon. Morning is much nearer than it would be enjoyed. Does the party sleep in?
I'm not going to allow someone to wake me before I can get my 8 hours for my spells. Are you crazy?
Yeah,
Spells.
me neither.
Rifter is just
Y'all-
a sleepy baby.
Y'all have 2 spellcasters in here. Y'all getting 8 hours of sleep, regardless of if that means we're gonna start working on a shifted schedule.
Lork is going to sleep until someone wakes him up, pretty much.
Well, Darius, sounds like it's up to you.
He's essentially just waiting until that we get that break point for the magic casters not killing me for waking them up.
I see. Alright, y'all can all go ahead and do your long rest stuff.
Thank you, kind sir.
You can neutral all your stuff out.
Hey. Alright, time to switch out this thing that I'm not going to ever use for something I'm going to use.
Enormous.
How many minutes are you gonna spend screaming at the gods after you wake up to do so?
I'm literally trying to figure that out based on the spells I need to get back.
I imagine that's probably what actually wakes Lork up in the morning.
You know what? Fair point.
Man, Legend lore, so good. So not gonna use it while we're fucking traveling to the gut to figure out the riddle we already used last time.
It's just that image of Moon Knight, but where he's like, "Dude, Dracula, I know you owe me $20, but instead it's just, I know, gods, you owe me some fucking spell slots."
By the time
them
most
spell
of the
slots.
party has come to terms with their morning routine, it's about the latest that anyone would be having a lunch, about an equivalent, or excuse me, the latest anybody would be having a breakfast, probably about the equivalent of like an 11:30 hour time.
Ah, brunch. The greatest meal of the day.
God, you let me sleep that long?
Yes. Actually, no, I let everyone sleep that long. We're not going to be very useful if we're exhausted, are we?
Fair point.
Just for clarification, did the party do anything with the bodies?
We buried them together.
You did?
Like
Okay.
good friends.
I know that you talked about it, but I did not know if you had done so.
Friends.
Oh, I don't have Xantra's Guide to Everything, so I don't know what the spell does. God damn it.
Which spell is it?
Holy Weapon.
Oh, that's like the 2d8 radiant damage on hit, isn't it? Anyway.
Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey, everyone.
Thank you.
As he's getting ready to travel, Lork is kind of unusually silent and sullen as he's getting his supplies packed and ready to load onto the cart.
Is Sternhoff awake, or is he currently still old man Komud?
Golden?
It appears that he's man-comed.
Sorry.
He is.
We're intense, right? We're not just like lying out in the open.
Hence, in this economy,
Most
don't know,
apt, the would probably be a form of sleeping bag, but like a little bit better.
bedroll.
Bedroll.
Dire bedroll.
Dire bedroll.
You see slight movement from his bedroll, implying that he is at least coming to, if not awake already.
Rifter sat on top or slept on top of his bedroll, so you just see as he wakes up, he just does like from the top of his back, he just pushes upwards and just fully jumps up onto his feet and quickly assembles up all of his stuff.
Oh, great conversation, everyone.
Darius is just looking around and watching the people who are very quiet. Like he's currently loading screen about everybody who's shut up right now.
Alright, I've added the one. Alright, so it's a minute per spell level per spell, right?
Something like that, if you're changing them out.
Just wanted to get a quick calculation here.
How many minutes are you screaming at your gods?
39 minutes.
So we're just having brunch, and Hate is just screaming the entire time.
Like midway, like about 5 minutes in, Darius is gonna raise a finger. Hey, could you walk out into the woods a little bit if you're gonna continue to do this?
About 5 minutes in, you say? Great, I have to start over on my 7th level spell. Thanks.
Rifter follows her as this is amazing content.
Reminded that levels of spells do exist in canon. So, like, Hate can straight up literally say that, and it would not be out of place.
Darius sort of raises his hands for a second, goes back to eating.
The spell I keep purely in case we have to deal with more invisible assassins, and you guys are making me have to restart asking for it. She's grumbling.
The more you're complaining to us, the more you're not complaining to them.
Yeah, Rifter just follows her and listens to her as he fully intends to one day steal her voice and use these.
There are insults in like the divine tongue that like she doesn't even speak fully. She just knows the insults.
She just knows what those specific things mean.
It's like, what do you speak? I speak common, orc, undercommon, and select insults in both celestial and infernal.
I speak fuck you in Celestial.
Richter's just out here trying to collect the swear words in every language.
Finally, after 40 sessions, I have them all.
I know, Richter doesn't have Sylvan yet, or Abyssal.
Darius came up with the Abyssal.
Turns out Abyssal doesn't actually have any swear words because the whole language is technically a slur. So
Okay, I see. New goal, Rifter learning Abyssal.
it's like it's impossible to say a word that isn't actually a horrible thing in Abyssal. All of them. The infinite maw of the abyss. Each individual creature's name is another slur.
So while those of you who are not of the strictly pure murder variety are enjoying your brunch, you're able to hear as the two of them are off a good distance in the woods, with the occasional higher pitch, higher intensity screams for added oomph. Just another day.
What's got you so somber, Lorik?
To be frank, I think I failed yesterday.
Nobody was hurt? What do you mean?
You get the sense that Lork would raise an eyebrow.
The metaphysical eyebrow?
Yes. It has arisen.
Tell me then what you failed on.
For a lot of what happened yesterday, I thought I was just playing that role to get information easier and try to ensure everyone's safety as effectively as possible. But now that I've had an opportunity to sleep on it, I realized that for at least a good majority of that time, I wasn't just playing the role of the Censor Nominus.
What do you mean by that?
I was acting as any Delmarev would in that situation. Any proper Delmarev.
And?
You can understand why that's a problem, considering the current state of the clan, right?
Well, I think that to say that I would reject everything I've learned about the clan and you. The clan is not inherently evil. Just because you are Delmarev does not make you bad.
Right,
It's a
but
system that
because I've acted as a representative of the clan's current methods.
The intent behind your words. Tell me of it.
These words right now, or
Yesterday.
it's not an excuse, but I was tired. I was angry.
I'm not asking what you were, I'm asking your intent.
I know, and my intent was tied to that. So my intent was to put the fear of my clan into him.
And you wielded the power of your name to gain information we likely otherwise would not have gotten.
Beyond that, even, I used my magics further to shatter his ability to concentrate on anything but what I was asking him directly. I know the properties of my magics, and I could tell that his mind was unraveling at any moment that we weren't actively healing him.
You know you can click and drag us, right?
You see what I'm getting at, right?
I suppose so. I was wondering
Just the
why.
zone of truth, or just the name would have been enough.
I was wondering why I couldn't get his attention to me.
You saw that black lightning coursing through him, right?
Vaguely.
It's not the most powerful of spells. Normally it just inflicts intense fear upon the recipient of my strikes, but my clan's magics are able to augment that sort of spell to inflict pain along with that fear.
Alright. So, then I ask, or rather I should bring up, your clan does this kind of thing in the support of a corrupt power structure to keep dictators in their seats, failing to uphold the justice of the people. And you use it to
I used
try
it on a man
to
who was
protect your
already
life.
beaten, who was already at death's door, and who we could have easily coaxed the information from without having to unravel his mind to do so.
Nice to see you finally get it. At least one of you.
Think about it. What I did last night was no better than what Kivas was intending to do to Ract before we finally stepped up and
Not exactly a phenomenal example, if you're trying to pull me to your side.
Why not? The only reason why we stepped up is because he was one of our own for a while.
The only reason you stepped up. He still assaulted Dyer, attempted to kill him. I have no mercy, no kindredship for him.
Nor I, but that sort of magic, that assaults a mind like that, is one of the worst fates that anyone can experience.
So then you recognize in yourself that you made excess.
I recognize that I slipped. For a moment, I was the man I used to be.
Disagree. I would agree that you slipped. But I cannot say that I am uniquely bereft of indulging in excess. I was, after all, under the guise of Nidhogg for a majority of my life. If you let this continue to just gnaw at you, you're going to lose your sense of where you're going, why you're doing these things. Understand that it was excess. Try to avoid it in the future. But the more you let it consume you, the less effective you're going to be. With yourself, with others.
Totally right, but I have to be vigilant.
Then be vigilant.
I can't let that happen again.
Well, if that is what you want, then I agree. But beating yourself up over it, acting sullen, I say does not exactly help that. You can be prepared to watch yourself, to check yourself without acting depressive. Besides, it's not as enjoyable as having you with a smile around, albeit as rare as it is.
We should get on the way as soon as Hate's done. How much longer do you reckon she has?
Well, she said that I interrupted her halfway through one of her higher level slots, and if she does it in the same way that I did, from top to bottom, so the maximum amount of time that we've got left is interrupted 5 minutes, so somewhere in the ballpark of a half hour.
They need 16, which is at this point probably like 13 more.
But keep in mind, that's absolute maximum Lorik. That's assuming that she's entirely changing the repertoire of her magic.
Well, I guess there's nothing for it but to wait then. Does everyone have their things on the cart?
Aye.
Hayden and Rifter are free to rejoin when they choose.
Hate's like finished, but she's been turned to Rifter and has been instructing him on what specific phrases mean. Like the kinds of phrases that she knows inherently have power, and so whenever Rifter says them, a god has to listen just so that he can annoy them.
Rifter is like He's basically like sitting down, crisscross applesauce, like a kid in class. Like, teach me, master. Show me how wise and powerful you are. Like he's complimenting her. He's like, oh, this is so great.
Is he imitating them at all?
He's like thinking of them, and he's like, without saying them, he's like mouthing them.
Okay. Rifter, would you mind making me a religion check?
Oh, okay.
He's setting it up in the free marketplace of his ideas.
All right. Where is religion? There it is.
It's R. It's
Ooh, all right.
It's the only R.
So, Rifter, I'd like you to get a special little trait. You can cast one first level cleric slot once each day.
What?
They just learn. You learn one first level spell that you can cast once each day.
Okay.
Rifter learns cure wounds. Fuck you, heal me.
What do you mean cure wounds? He's absolutely taking inflict.
Actually, hold on. Not from the entire cleric spell list, from whatever Hate's like level 1 spells are.
Oh, okay.
All right, so of the ones I currently have, I absolutely do not want this man to be learning how to make it so that other people can't touch him.
That's sanctuary.
Out there yeah.
Give me shield. Give me shield.
No.
Oh, guess what? I don't have regular shield, but I do have shield of faith
Oh,
on
fuck.
my current prepared list.
Wait. So does hate determine which one I get, or do I get to pick from that list?
Let's see, there are 6? Yeah, roll me a d6. Let's go with that. Are you okay with that? Before we see the results, what do the two of you want? Do you want it to just be random, or do you want it to...
I'm always an advocate for random, and I hate the fact that I explicitly said I hope he doesn't get
he got
sanctuary.
sanctuary. There you go, Rifter.
Let's go. I don't know what that does.
That's why I clicked
read
on it
it.
for you.
I know. I'm about to. Jesus.
This is the
I'm
part
sitting
where
here.
we flame him.
Off the top of my head, I don't just know what sanctuary does.
Really?
Imagine not knowing all the spells in the game off the top of your head. Little
I
mouth.
know.
And any spell that's been in more than one edition, I already know its ability. Its effects.
Dude, you can use your bonus action for more than dash now and hide.
Yo.
Oh wow! Wait, yeah, I actually can. Let's go, boys. More bonus actions.
Clearly, you dash, you hide, and then you sanctuary yourself so that they can't attack you even if they find you.
I
It's-
become ungovernable.
Just remember that if you attack or whatever, if it's on you, then that's bad.
It's okay. I wouldn't put it on me.
Yeah, you would. You put it on you, and then you wait in the middle of them for your perfect time for flanking attacks.
Okay, that sounds hilarious, but I care about my friends more.
Especially since your save DC would not be that high.
True. So Rifter just randomly feels this, I guess, godlike power coursing through him. And he's like, huh.
He's just going through, as Hate's going through their basic ones to help, like, kind of just for the shits and giggles. He goes through, and on one of them, the 5th one, he says it, and he just kind of glows a little bit.
He just looks at his hands.
It's like
shocked.
Parappa the Rappa. It's fucking hate going fuck. Oh, and then Rifter goes fuck. Oh, and then he glows a little bit.
This is absolutely canon now. Rifter is just Parappa the Rappa.
It's on.
That wasn't supposed to. She stops, thinks for a second, and then says, well, you know, that actually is supposed to happen, but I wasn't expecting it to happen.
What did you do to me?
I didn't do anything to you. You just channeled divine magic, which also means, congratulations, a god's listening to you now. Welcome to the curse. And Hate walks back.
Is it possible to know which?
Probably fine. One of the easy ones. And Hate just keeps walking. She needs to inform others of this development.
So, the last icon that Rifter had dealings with, he believes is Nidhogg, so now he's scared.
Hey guys, accidentally made Rifter into a divine caster. She walks over and picks up a little bit of whatever was being cooked on the fire.
Lork just shakes his head in defeat. Not the defeat that he had been feeling previously, a whole new wave of defeat.
You know, I was already in a really bad mood. Why would you give me news when I'm in a bad mood?
Rifter just shows up. He's just talking very fast, trying to ignore the subject. Like, hey, so what's up, lads? What are we talking about? Hey, nice morning, isn't it?
So, Rifter, which icon have you pledged yourself to?
So, lads, what will we be doing today?
Which icon?
Darius puts his hand on his shoulder. Now, knowing hate, he hasn't pledged himself to an icon. He's told an icon to fuck themselves.
That's about right. He then started glowing in a very familiar way. It looked like it was probably the sanctuary spell, but
Oh God.
Rifter just
imagine being magically compelled to not be able to touch Rifter.
Well, he doesn't need a magic spell for that.
Are you being mean to our boy who may now have just dedicated his soul to a god?
Yes.
Accidentally. Yeah, fair point.
No. He needs to have a soul for that to happen.
All Rifter says is just, I can think of many people that does not apply to, by the way. But, I don't know what I did. I have zero idea how this works. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get myself killed. So, let's, repress the problem and continue on with our lives.
So compartmentalize and continue. Two C's.
I would like to point one thing out before we continue. This is just karma for Rifter saying that he's the only one who doesn't need to use magic here.
Now. It's two C's, not three. Conversation is not part of it. Compartmentalize, continue.
Lork finishes packing the rest of his stuff onto the cart and resummons his horse.
That's it. Unsummons your horse.
This spell magic exists. Horse, why do I hear boss music?
Hey man, it's not like you figured out exactly what my plan was to force us to have a nice conversation in the middle of a fucking road.
Party's just like walking down and Hate's like, this seems like a good spot for conversation. Foosh. So,
moment.
Go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying sermon moment. Because, hates sermons. I don't have any...
Would anyone else like to do anything while we were at this location?
I'm assuming we're horsening and then running.
Anything you'd like to do at location 2 where you guys had gone previously?
I'm going to exaggeratedly slap myself down in the cart right next to Struenhoff.
Darius is going to make his way over to the second body and just snap his fingers and just light it ablaze to try and turn it to ash.
F. It certainly burns, and it's a little bit already like eaten into as a result of some of the creatures of the night.
If you want to know where the adventurers are, follow the vultures.
Well, that's taken care of. Any ashes or anything else that exists, he's just gonna push into the water.
Get drowned.
I have a feeling that drowning is his least concern.
I'll whisper some small prayers to some random, like, god of lakes.
The prayer is made and the party continues forward.
Oh, wise bird of the caravan.
Dude,
I did
I
not
don't think
expect
you-
Rifter to actually have wisdom.
Rifter's wisdom is like it's like the old school D&D way where your stats actually two substats that are averaged together. He has infinite perception and 0 wise. And that's why he has a high wisdom.
listen. The way I always think about it is that Rifter's actually pretty smart. He just has an ego the size of a blimp.
So that means his charisma is low, right?
No.
Listen, force of personality, man. People just don't argue with him.
What's his CHR?
Listen, I was able to convince all of you to go on multiple murder sprees, okay?
Listen, he
No,
doesn't have a low
Darius
charisma
convinced
because he
himself.
can force a lot of people to do a lot of things. He's very persuasive.
Want you to know, I have still yet to murder someone on one of Rifter's murder sprees.
Oh
You
boy,
know
here
what?
I go killing again.
We'll get you yet. We'll get you yet.
I know Dopter was the main proponent for saving Ract. Where did Rifter originate on that?
Oh, Rifter was kind of mixed because he's like, well, he was our friend, but he tried to kill Dyer. So I mean, like, you know,
He tried to kill the homies.
yeah.
And I just thought of something real strange. That I'm going to be using magic to buff my anti-magic weapon.
Nice.
I use
Good
magic
luck
to
with
destroy
that.
Magic.
It's gonna be interesting. When I hit somebody and immediately dispel the spell.
Lorik, lead the way. Every 2 tiles you move will be a day.
1 day.
On of the second day.
2 day.
Okay, so on the at the end of the second day, well, like halfway through the second day, has Struenhoff, have you been quiet this whole time?
Yes.
Hate's going to turn and ask him a very specific question. What do you think I should have done differently?
I can't answer that for you. Perhaps try asking one of your hundreds of gods.
I think I've explained how little I care for their opinion. That's why I'm asking of yours. I happen to know what everyone else in this group would say, and I want to know what your opinion is. What you would have thought was a better action to take.
I think that statement already answers your question.
Not necessarily. I know that. All right, let me take a step back and say this slightly differently. I have certain religious convictions that have led to a specific outcome. I was asking, do you think that the problem, would you change my convictions or would you have come to a different conclusion with them?
I don't know how to answer what you're asking. I'm not one of the faithful ones.
I know.
I care not for your religious decisions and how they impact your decision making.
It sounds like you're making the argument that one should make decisions, or at least you would make decisions without the bearing of not necessarily what comes beyond, but my perspective on my beliefs about them.
Turnoff is silent.
I know the situation wasn't this. I just want to pose this as a hypothetical. Is someone allowed to decide when their life ends? Just say they've lived their full life and they have confirmation that whatever comes after is going to be exactly what they want from them. Are they allowed to choose to be done?
Well, I suppose it depends if they've been psychologically tortured before then or not.
Fair point. There's someone can choose to be done because traumas in their past have changed their point of view, especially traumas in their very, very recent past. I want to say that I started that interaction from my perspective, looking at someone I think wanted to pass on regardless of our actions. I may have erred in that judgment.
You could say that.
But I asked that question very specifically. What makes you think otherwise? Note, I'm making the very specific argument that if I don't believe it is my place to argue somebody into living if they do not want to, but it would still be something bad to argue someone into giving up on life if they do want to live. What did I miss? It seemed that once they had arrived, they already wanted the outcome where they passed on.
In the heat of the moment, people act irrationally. His orders from his group was to kill himself if he ever got captured. We knew that even before we captured him.
Would you make the argument that every action he had taken, the unbroken chain that led him to actually attacking us, all of those were the heat of the moment? Because he
They were
had to
obviously trained assassins.
Yes, but that would also mean that he at some point, many points really, knew that if he got into a fight, each fight would be the chance that he survives but fails and thus must seek alternative solutions.
Look, I'm not interested in debating philosophy with you.
I want to know your perspective so that I can understand where it was that I erred. I trust your judgment and I value your opinions. And when one of the few people that I can say I value almost as much as myself has such a stark and different perspective on the events that happen, it's something that I want to take notice of. Especially considering it's one of the less talkative members of the group. I want to know what you're thinking so that I can incorporate it even if the others wouldn't.
Size. I think you did what you needed to do. I don't think you were the one most at fault.
The tricky thing about fault is that at any point in there, any one of us could have stood up and interrupted any of, or all of, what happened.
That's correct.
There's
That's what I'm mulling over myself.
I would say that the worst thing that we could do is blame, well, the worst thing that I think you could do is blame yourself for not standing up.
Oh, I'm not blaming myself, but I'm recognizing my mistakes.
Good. Well, from your perspective, you would see that as a mistake, and I'm inclined to it's strange to think that we... No, that's not what I was going to say. It's more, it's strange being... It's strange being caught in a moral dilemma that wasn't caused by Rifter, is more of what I was saying. He didn't help, but...
Reminder that everyone is sitting in the cart
Yeah,
able to
literally
hear.
everyone else is here. Hate's
Yeah,
Hate,
Lork
like
is-
looked over and said this as she was looking at Rifter.
Rifter is
paying
just
deep
enjoying the
attention to
conversation.
this.
Darius is like actively observing the conversation and intaking.
I imagine Lork's probably the one driving the cart, right?
He does seem like the stuffy person who would want to drive a cart instead of hang out with all of his friends.
Damn, got him. No, Rifter just has a shit-eating grin.
I mean, Lork would know that he doesn't need to drive the cart if he doesn't want to. But I assume it would probably bring him some sense of comfort knowing that he's in control rather than trusting it to his summon.
Yeah.
But nah, basically, Rifter just has a shit-eating grin. He just says, "Oh, you already know what I think," and that's it. That's all he says.
People were wondering why comedy music was playing. It's because when you zoom out, this touching moment was actually two people shit talking literally everyone else in the cart.
True.
Darius doesn't think that she like. I know I recognize that they are, but Darius doesn't think they're shit talking him.
Lork definitely recognizes that he's being shit talked, and he thinks he deserves every bit of it.
Darius was good cop.
Damn.
The only thing Darius didn't do right was stop the escalation. And even that's arguable.
Rifter's just like, "Your boosts mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer."
Hey man, I make one joke about killing a town champion and everyone thinks I laugh at bad things. Well, I'll make a deal. Or I want to make a deal. Can I at least ask for your input on things a bit more often in like these after action kinds of ways? It came as a sort of shock that there was such a divide. And if I had been able to consider the fact that this perspective even was here with us, I believe that we would have had a different outcome.
It comes as a shock to you, you say?
I'll have you know that I'm not always here, but I do think that when I am, you're not that heavily opinionated.
Rather in character for me, I would say. He took issue with us in previous actions on more morally questionable proceedings. I would argue this is far less than other things he's brought up, but doesn't make it less valid.
That's entirely fair. I'll have to file that in. The
Argue that
problems
this
of
is
being a
on
bit
par.
absent. We have an entirely different conversation to have later.
Do we?
Of
You and who?
course. Honestly, all of us, but I was more talking about Lorg. I fully believe that this was a mistake, that Lork is going to beat himself over far more than he needs to.
Oh,
And somebody's...
I've already gone through this with him.
Yes, but he was the one who went through my mistake with me. So at least I can throw his words back into his face.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Have at it. I just want you to know. Just context. I've already heckled him quite a bit.
Although, she stops for a moment, gets a little bit more of a serious tone. I would like to ask, even if you don't personally feel like we did anything wrong, out of respect, can we have a moment where we at least acknowledge the different point of view here?
I personally full well understand why he takes this approach.
Referring to me or to Schoenhoff?
Does it need to be an either or?
Fair point.
And Sternhoff. I'm not going to
Yes.
try and justify my refusal to act, but I do want you to understand why I did what I did.
Okay, I wasn't expecting you to justify it.
As you know, I grew up in a Yuan-Ti village where any action you take, any words you speak to another, have the chance for you to meet a gruesome end at the end of a pike, at the top of a cross, bleeding out from your guts, from your neck, from your eyes, from your fingers. When I looked into his eyes as Rifter and I should say, were chasing him across the river, I saw the eyes of somebody who feared the deaths that I feared as a child. Who feared that his kin would be the ones, if not him, to end him. I gave him the greatest mercy I could see, the greatest mercy I would give myself. He had the option to live, so I interceded not when he died.
Sounds like you broke your promise to him then.
How so?
You promised that you would protect him should he want to live in the zone of truth.
Aye, and he chose to not live, so I did not protect him.
And not ideal, but giving him a quick death would, in a way, be protecting him from what would await him back home. I'm not saying that to justify anything.
And you think nothing of what went on in that circle influenced his decision?
I think I come from an understanding of his desire for death, from his raise, his childbirth. The eyes that I saw told me everything I needed to know.
I guess there isn't much more to be said then.
I do think we still need to at least think about this to some extent. What happened 2 nights ago is the reason why Aquila left.
If that was what made her leave, I'm frankly surprised she hadn't left earlier.
Yeah, to be honest, it's for the best.
I can agree with that.
But we should still keep that in mind that even if it's not a warning for what we did, then it's still a warning that we can drive away seemingly loyal people. Take away from what happened what you will, but no matter what you take away, at least take some caution.
Aquila was a friend, and I believe that our actions and our course ran contrary to her beliefs, her moral system, what she needs to do in the world. I find it better that she joins Doppler in an attempt to do good in the world than to follow us down our morally questionable ways. She's done me great good finding me this reprieve from emptiness, but and he sort of like looks down at his hands. I, for one, can recognize that I am not good for her.
I understand that as well.
It's really not that complicated. If you can't handle the fire, get out to the kitchen.
You could do with being a little less brutal, Rifter.
Maybe, but that won't change what treatment awaits us. The combatants, they're going to give us the same treatment. Probably
Perhaps.
worse.
Perhaps. But nonetheless, if for no other reason, it's horribly inefficient.
That I do agree. In fact, I will say that, for once, I think I may agree with Strunhoff on here. We should have let him live. But for very different reasons. I come to ponder this, that perhaps maybe he was more useful alive than dead.
And perhaps for that
is-
reason it's more preferable that he doesn't have to live through whatever plans you were about to come up with.
Well, listen, Rifter, that is a conjecture-based assessment. You cannot actively say that he would have been more useful. It was a decision we had to make in the moment, and when we go on information based off of two things that both seem equally useful, why not take the more humane approach?
I don't disagree. I'm just saying, perhaps, maybe we acted too rashly. Perhaps maybe he would have been useful bait or useful in some other way. I don't really know. I'm just saying, it's certainly possible.
Well,
The
pondering on what
inherent
if
value of
doesn't
a
help.
life.
Reminder that Rifter still thinks he's chaotic good.
And he kind of thinks about it for a second. And he says, I think about the good or bad that life does. That's what I care about.
Chaotic
Reminder that
neutral,
Rifter still thinks he's chaotic good.
Reminder that
yeah,
Rifter still thinks
absolutely.
that he's chaotic good.
Oh yeah, Rifter thinks he's chaotic good. Mind you, Rifter's player thinks he's chaotic neutral, but we all know that's a lie.
Oh man, most people who are actually evil think they're chaotic good, or lawful good, or Actually, no, I
Some
don't think
form of
any
good.
neutral evil people think they're neutral good. I think that one's pretty clear cut.
Yeah. Come on, let's keep moving. We don't know what other surprises our quarry has for us.
You're the one that stopped the horses.
I'd imagine they were moving this time.
Yeah.
It is
If we
the
were
end of
stopped.
the it's the end of the 17th. You may continue moving.
This is the part, Lork, where you push
18.
us off into a completely random direction and see what he has for us.
19.
Do we want to stop in Krova to get supplies and all that?
Does the DM have Krova?
Yes, the DM has Crover. The DM has had Crover for many months.
Then let's stop in
Sick.
Krova.
That would
You know
give
what?
me an opportunity to power up Sloric, so
Yo.
You know what? I'll even leave the previous icons up. Icons?
Icons!
Take a look. This is how old it was designed for.
damn.
That was back when the Zeus stuff happened. When you guys were talking about walking down to Cosfin.
Damn, Daniel.
Hey, look at that. I'm exactly the same.
Wow.
Dude, it's Dire V2 instead of Dire V3.
That was Darius V2?
Darius
That was
V1.
Oh.
This is V3 with the I
Is it?
V5.
I thought there were two different Darius icons you made that weren't Hawk.
2.5.
Nope.
There was one that he used as like a more full look at the character, but only one that was ever used as a token.
Ah, I see.
And the token was just zoomed in on the face.
And the party
token was
arrives in
different from the
Krova.
other one.
To your south, you see a great deal of people tending to fields. At this time, they're currently setting up their crops for later in the spring. It's hard work, and the center of the town is fairly barren. There are not many more buildings aside from the three here, barring a few shacks out in the fields. One of them takes a notice to Darius and begins to approach, climbing over the fence.
What time of day is it?
It's around midday.
I might have missed this, but are these people as big as their tiles seem to suggest?
This person is as big as their tile
Okay.
seems to suggest. Everyone else is regular size.
Okay.
Everyone else, I only see them.
Good afternoon.
Oh, come on, you don't remember me? He kinda holds out his hand.
He takes it. Derek, does Chad not remember?
I would
or
think Darius probably doesn't remember either.
Can I roll a history for that one?
Sure. Alright.
12.
His face is a little familiar, but you can't quite pin it to anything. He ends up telling you instead. You gave me quite a thrashing back at the fair. It was a pleasure talking to you some after.
The fair, I remember. And very frankly, I wasn't really the one that did most of the thrashing.
So, what brings you to Fair Crover?
We're passing through at the moment, trying to make our way back to Korheim.
Lots to. It's not too many towns out here, so if you're here, I might as well Yeah, we might as well. Say you wanna come inside, take a rest for the day?
That's very kind of you. And he sort of points back. I've got a couple people with me if that changes your offer.
Not at all. The more the merrier.
He looks around, he says, shall we?
He looks, he points at Hate. Remember you, not to demean anyone else, but where's the rest of you?
I partook in the cooking competition.
No. Didn't you,
I won't mind you.
didn't you have another blue one?
Yes, that was Dyer. He's, not with us right now. He's currently tending to matters of family.
Sounds like he's got his matters straight, then. Oh,
Well, we don't know if he's quite straight, honestly.
he rolls his eyes a little bit. And I might as well extend my name as well. Benrick, good to see you again.
Good to see you as well, Fenric.
How tall are you?
Are you asking or are you asking me?
Oh, Hate's asking. There's this moment where like she's looking over at Lork and is like, all right, you're like slightly taller. That's acceptable. Looking at this guy and it's like, This is information I need to know.
Baby Darius with his 5'9" brain. Or is he 5'8"? I don't remember what I have on his.
I think it was 5'9".
So in our heights, he's actually more than just a little bit taller than you. He's probably sitting at like 8'7".
Darius is like, I would not have been so lucky if it was a one-on-one. He's like saying to himself.
Oh, I dare say you would have given me some trouble.
Oh, nonsense. I'm sure. If I had, I would have just gotten lucky. He starts shuffling around some pre-stored food in some of his bags.
You live here with anyone?
We all work together, try to get what we can.
Hate has like this moment where her eyes go a bit wide. This is a tribe.
He has a bit of a chuckle. I guess you could say that. He kind of pops open the window a little bit. Cage, how you feel about us being a tribe? Ah, shut up.
Oh, this is definitely a tribe.
Oh, relax, Hate. I know you're excited to finally see something else that you can identify as a tribe.
They even have the person who doesn't even like the idea that they're all a tribe. There's like one of them in each tribe, at least.
By that definition, couldn't anything be a tribe?
No, there's other things that go into it. That's just one of the qualities.
I imagine one of the other things that's in every tribe is the person who points out everything else that is a tribe.
Yes? I wasn't that girl until after I left, to be fair.
He looks over to you, Lorik, as he kind of begins cooking, and he says, "You said you were partaking in the competition, the cooking.
Aye.
Don't suppose you'd like to help out?
Of course, if you would have me.
Please."
Lork joins in.
I'll be back in just a moment.
He He sort of crosses his arms and like does like a little like hand in front of his face sideways, sort of like almost like comparing their heights, and then like putting his hand over his head and then like eyeing Lorik and putting it over his. He's about, man, he's taller than you are than me.
You hear him yell from across the, basically the entirety of the town, which is not saying very much. Emperor! And before long, he ends up coming back with a couple more tables. Which he promptly sets up just outside the building.
Darius, well, that was a tortured example of a sentence. I think I understand what you were trying to say there.
You do have to remember, Common is not my first language, even though I'm.
Don't mind.
Is Common any of our first? She stops,
Turn off.
looks over at Strudenhoff.
I'm it's probably
You've been keeping from us, Strudenhoff.
probably Rifter's first language.
He looks around as a Rifter is not Rifter right now, and he just.
Well, Rifter is in Rifter form, so I don't know what else he would be
He's
in.
probably
so.
Vermilion right now.
Yeah, I am Vermilion. I
And
mentioned
replace the word with Vermilion.
There is no Vermilion on this page.
Yeah. I posted up above. I am not Birdo. But yeah, Vermilion is just like, hey, who is this friend that we know? Hey.
There we go.
No,
Windows are now
replace
actually
Vermilion.
there.
When I say replace with Vermilion, I don't mean your token. I mean replace what he said with Vermilion.
Yeah. In that case, he's just like, I do not speak this actually.
Well, do you speak any language?
He shakes his head. No, I do not.
Then I would
s-
consider this your first language.
He gives it some thought and just says, indeed, friend. I had to remember what Vermilion's voice was for a second there.
Has Hate formally written over permission to Rifter to use her form if he ever needs to?
No.
Because if not, she's absolutely going to do that one of these days when she has some excess paper.
Can Rifter even mimicate? She's like 1.5 feet taller than him.
He can make a small Hate.
Yeah, I could be Hate but smaller.
As long
Then
as the ratios are fine and you're not too close, I'm sure it would work out.
No, it wouldn't be called hate, it'd be called angry.
Moderate disdain.
Miffed.
Bugged.
But yeah, Vermilion just kind of like does his usual bit of being an airhead and not knowing what's going on.
Someone says Rifter. Rifter. Huh?
True.
No, I said thrifter.
Oh, true. That's
No,
my
I
favorite
said
store.
steamed hams. That's what I call hamburgers.
So yeah, Vermilion's just gonna go ahead and look at the fur bowl and he's going to say, so, what do you do on an average day, my friend?
I assume you're asking that to Fenric?
Yes.
Darius just straight up fucking moy eyes as he
Boy.
fucking asked this question, surrounded by fields.
Most of the time, we just tend out to the fields, try to get what we can to, pay our taxes, and the rest end up conversing it for a good time with strangers who come through. It's a fulfilling life.
I see. This is This is wonderful. What a great way to live one's life.
He already had a smile on his face, but now it's slightly not bigger, but stronger.
My retirement plans looked very similar to this.
You intend to retire?
Oh, I intend to fist fight a god until they give me a place like this in the afterlife.
That reminds me, I have to actually start thinking about what afterlife I want to go to. After my time with you-know-who, that is.
The collector.
Is he a secret?
Not really, I just, read resentment to him from a while, so wanted to not breach the subject.
I think I'm mostly over that.
I'm still waiting for the day when he manages to break over into actual divinity. I can already see it happening.
Well, it'd be an interesting experience if I'm there. Pretty damn close. From what we saw, anyways. Which actually interests me. How does time pass for him? Because I doubt that our dimensions have similarly aligned times.
Would you mind making me a history check real quick?
Perhaps. 2.
2. Good question.
Moment. Well, I may not remember much about the collector's home, but I remember that the genies, their domain, well, time didn't pass at all while we were there.
Which means, if we theoretically spent a day out here, how much time would pass in there if no time passed at all? Infinite? None?
Or maybe it was just like that one said, and he had been stealing moments for us. Maybe normally time passes as normal, but I don't really want to get into discussing how exactly an icon's magic works.
You know, under some perspectives, discussing the universe is discussing how icon magic works. Which is far more depressing to think about. So I suggest we all thank our host for this wonderful meal we are about to have.
Indeed.
He just puts up both his hands for a moment, putting down what he was working on. No, please, it's nothing. Just listening's enough.
Nonsense. Greatest gratitude, friend. It was an honor to duel, and it is a greater honor to converse.
He has a smile as he yells out, "Come on!" And as the few other townsfolk that are nearby kind of move in, the first one in is a somewhat pinkish tiefling who just kind of forces past him out of the way and just kind of pushes him to the side, physically pushing him out of the way as he just kind of slides over before grabbing some of it and just propping it up against the wall.
Nondescript. Hey!
Knows what she wants.
Lorik, would you mind making me a history check?
I was gonna say that to one of those people at least looked familiar.
Which one?
I was thinking the tiefling looked like someone from Seraph.
Wah, wah. That's another 2. Today, what is cooked today, Lorik? Some form of soup?
Looks like it according to the graphic of the pot.
Indeed. So, Hate, as you approach, she's just kind of eating her soup, and as you get much closer, she's just in the middle of a scoop. And she just stops and she's looking at you. Can I help you?
I really don't have a good answer for that. Hi, the name's Hate. Have we met before?
No.
Oh.
And she, and she finishes scooping out that scoop that was kind of halfway there, still kind of just watching you as you're, like, 2 feet in front of her.
Scooching over a bit. So this guy's a huge softie. What do you think about the town?
Hope
Oh.
he beats your ass.
I could get on board with that.
Hate
Yeah.
leaves the table from Shrunhoff. The rest of them all get together and are just talking shit about her now. I see how it is.
He says, well, yeah, he's kind. Nice and away from everything, plenty of room to work. Don't quite share his passion for stories, but it's nice being away and knowing that everybody who's here doesn't hate you.
That is. Hate stops for a second and gets like that 1,000-yard stare of something that hits a bit too close home. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good thing to have.
Just wanted to say hi. And she kinda walks back over to the group.
Done flirting?
I just wanted to think about family for a bit.
Well, that was fast. You done thinking about family for your for the what, month, year?
She takes like 2 more like deep breaths and then smiles. Yeah, sounds about right.
The woman who sits at the table with you guys looks over to Lorik after taking a couple bites. So how have you been doing, Lorik? It's nice to see you again.
Takes Lorik like half a second to register that someone was actually talking specifically to him.
Yeah, Darius like nudges him in the side as he's like not doing anything.
Apologies, I missed your question.
How have you been doing? It's been a while. Probably like... yeah, just about a year.
When
You
was
gonna
it that
say-
we last met?
What was the first word there?
Said, Lorik said gods. When was it? Where was it when we last met?
In Hectorum. I had gone there for one of my article pieces and you were kind enough to tell me a bit about it.
Ah, I remember now. I apologize. There's been a lot that's happened this year.
Did you happen to read that piece?
I believe I did, actually.
Was the Highborn about as described?
Truth be told, I haven't ever actually seen the Highborn enough to know for sure.
Sorry,
All I
that's
really know about him
that's terribly rude of me. I shouldn't.
Not
be-
at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I completely understand. Just all I really know about him is the stories.
Hold on, I need a minute. Something's happening.
Something is
It's
definitely happening.
Ben, we really do have one brain cell as a party, don't we?
True.
I resent that. We have 3. There's the one shared by Lorg, Darius, and Rifter, and then there's the one that I have and the one Strunov has.
True.
Man, the intermission song got real loud.
True.
You guys have rhythm up above 20%?
It got louder than the other ones.
Ah.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. I cast Thaumaturgy 3 times just to make the flames look fancy colors while I'm sitting here.
Fancy. Surprisingly, you don't get that many weird looks.
Dude, wouldn't it be Pog if Darius made fire, radiant fire, and then Hate like fucking made rave lights out of it?
I used 2 of my casting on making the lights fancy colors, and I used my 3rd one to make the ground tremor and beat.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
So, how have things been since I gave that information for you?
From what I heard, that edition sold pretty well.
Good, good.
Can't say how much of it was mine, but it gets the bills. I heard that Fenric ended up meeting some of you out in Evil.
Aye,
For the
he was,
festival.
it was quite an enjoyable experience getting to duel him and another who is a little too high profile to just name.
For the first time since they entered here, Rifter drops his like bug-eyed expression of looking stupid and gets serious for a second, like grr. Like there's a slight hint of like malice, and then he continues to be like cross-eyed, stupid, vermilion.
I don't know how I managed it, but I managed to, in a free-for-all, defeat them.
You simply applied good tactics.
Have you seen how big they are?
Aye, that's why, as I recall, you let them wear themselves out on each other.
The bigger he is, the smaller the world is. Right? No wonder the two of us would mate.
I suppose that makes sense.
Thank you for helping with the soup.
Of course, I wouldn't dream of doing otherwise unless I was asked not to.
How dare you help, Lorik?
Lorik's
Oh, I
over
know
here
some-
trying to steal glory by contributing to people's cooking.
I know that some people take great pride in their cooking, as I do.
That's gotta break some sort of oath, right? Excessive pride.
He won't even
Of
let
course
me
I'm
help him when we're cooking.
Hey, I've seen you eat danger soup before.
Just because I have an expanded palate doesn't mean I don't also have an expanded palate in the other direction.
It kind of does, no.
So thank you, but I would rather not take my chances.
I'll have you know that spice is a poison and we just eat it because people think, ooh, the tingling feels good.
Aye. But still not danger soup.
You could technically follow that logic to justify drinking just straight poison.
Darius, what did you do 3 days ago?
I am built different. Literally. It is customary to brew poisons. I'm not going to follow through on that statement.
Wait, you're showing discretion about telling a tale from your past?
Well, when I say it's customary when referring to my people, it never ends well.
I'm going to address the elephant. When you address... Does it ever end well?
On the stories I've heard so far, and I've heard more than many of you.
But all I'm going to say is I'm not bound by an ancient eldritch deity anymore.
You know, we are
Which is
walking
the
with
best.
the one member, the one story of your people that seems to be working out very well.
As
We are
go ahead.
still going to kill all aspects of him, right?
Ideally.
If I
Okay,
can.
cool. All right. I
And
just
this-
wanted to make sure that we're still home.
Kia's ears kind of perk a little bit upwards. Oh, that sounds interesting.
Oh, it's nothing. We're just trying to purge the world of an ancient eldritch deity. Just a normal Varrock for us.
Let's see.
As one does, yes.
We had the... Today's the 19th, right? Because we moved 2 more tiles.
No,
Mhm.
today's the... Oh, yeah, today's the 19th.
Yeah.
Or the 20th.
Man,
Yeah,
imagine it
20th.
just being like Friday and you're just like, just another Sunday.
That's showbiz, baby.
Nah, it's showbiz, baby. She just goes, come on. You know you can just leave it there. Come on.
It's probably for the best that it does remain there.
I disagree.
There's going to be world-shaking outcomes if we succeed or fail, honestly.
I'm much more concerned if we fail, because I am mostly concerned with my own fate.
But speaking as someone with some experience in this matter, it's best that more people don't know about the being we're specifically speaking about.
I'll make a trade. If you give me... She stops for a second. 10 leaflets of premium quality paper. I will write out what we're doing and send it to you when we leave to do that actual task.
Listen,
That is something I have a lot of. And she puts
There-
out
there
her
is-
hands.
Prepaid.
She puts out her
Darius is
hand to
like-
shake.
hands on his face. Hey, this isn't your story to tell.
Well, then I'll just
Surprised that you
take...
didn't ask for 20. Who knew you'd gone cheap?
I resent that. And also, okay, fair. He makes a good point. They'll also have to, like, agree to this. So, you know, wait before shaking hands.
Okay, so then, and he's like inserting himself in. So then, Lorik, I understand your concern with it, but he is currently engaged in a little bit of difficulty with another icon. I doubt that he is actively listening right now. And
Oh, no,
even
I
if
completely understand that.
and
it's just better
even if
that
he
more
was,
people
he
know
already-
about him.
he already more people don't know about him. I understand the concept, but Nidhogg doesn't derive his strength from knowledge. Rather, I would even argue the opposite. His ability to go undetected is what makes him so powerful.
Yes, but the way I see it, knowledge of him becomes more commonplace. Someone somewhere uses that knowledge and tries to bind themselves to him for power or some other purpose. And suddenly Nidhogg has a way back into the world.
Perhaps, but I think you underestimate the strength of that djinn.
I'd also like to point out that by having this argument, the clearly sharp reporter next to us is already going to figure out most of the details.
Aye, that was entirely my intention.
She's a little bit flustered and says, "No, I'm not the reporter. I'm the artist. Yeah, you know, at the end of each, there's those
Right.
sections. Yeah, that's me."
I am suddenly significantly more impressed by your skill set. Not to denigrate reporters, I'm just very impressed by art.
I never took you for an art person, Hate.
I generally like the things that I am not good at. I also like the things that I'm good at, but that's besides the point.
So is that why you like women?
That sounds like Hate's getting up from the table, ready to fight.
I am allowed to take that as a compliment because you said it after the also good at part. So I will.
I'll let you take any prescription you want from what I said.
Do you see what I have to deal with? It's like one person in this party has to like women, at least.
Listen, no. I like women. I just don't only like women.
I don't. What? I'm
Yes,
getting into an argument with
finish.
Darius.
Finish what you're saying.
I know when I'm losing.
You did make me think, and I thought back, and I'm like, man, you're right.
It's not my fault that the most eligible bachelors that I hang around tend to also be looking at other eligible bachelors, okay?
Wow, I didn't know you saw me that way.
How's Lorik feeling?
Lorik is just repressing a massive sigh at the moment. It's a losing battle, mind you.
There's a part of Hate that like is enjoying playing into this, and then there's the other part that realizes she's actually losing an argument.
Darius is just
And-
poking fun at her. Darius isn't even engaged in an actual argument. Darius is just like...
The man behind y'all kind of steps up, moves a little bit closer, and first off, in a somewhat quieter voice behind Schoonhoff, just says quietly, nice cowl. Before kind of saying to everybody, plenty of people end up coming through here on their travels. Is there anything that we can get you up before you get on your way?
I, for one, believe you've shown us plenty of hospitality. We needn't take more from you.
It wouldn't be taking.
Would you like us to spend some of our coin? Because she looks just clearly at Darius. Most of us don't have very much.
Darius just raises his hands. I'm a filthy capitalist pig.
He looks at Darius for a moment and says, "Don't worry, your religion doesn't have anything to worry about here."
He gives a soft chuckle. It is something of religion, isn't it?
And that he just loses a little bit of the smile on his face, and he's like, "Is it not?"
Darius lets out a hearty chuckle. When I refer to capitalism, I refer to the system of payment. The idea that everything has a purchasing price.
It is a religion, yes.
He just gives a little bit of a nod and a thumbs up to Hate.
Just simply a godless one.
No, there's like 7. You might not follow them, but there are like 7.
I mean, as an idea. When you reflect it as an idea, it is somewhat cult-like and religious.
Basically, all 3 of the other people who are in this room who are not player characters are just constantly, like, just pivoting their heads back and forth as each
Nobody
person's
knows
targeting.
what you're talking about.
I mean, if there are literally multiple gods whose domain is that idea, can it be called a godless idea?
Well, I mean, I would still say it's a godless idea, but that's more in the derogatory way.
I think that even if an icon has tried to claim power over it, that doesn't make it theirs. It means that they want it to be theirs.
Also, isn't there literally, like, a golden, like, woman, like, money god?
Generally, those refer to
Joaquin,
the idea
yeah.
of greed and wealth, not specifically capitalism.
If I'm not mistaken, Joaquin is the goddess of trade.
Ah,
Damn, Daniel.
that'll do it.
Or goddess of commerce, or whatever her actual title is.
Either way, he's absolutely the one who you're going to convince to spend lots of money on great resources that your town produces for us.
Well, it's entirely dependent. Do you have regular shipments out? Are you able to export enough crops to make ends meet? Holy fuck, my words.
He says, "Hey, don't worry about it. Soup. Sometimes it's a bit spicy for all of us. Everybody chips on their tongue sometimes. Enough."
Well, I dabble in trade, so if you do find the need, or find the want even, to expand where you're moving things, perhaps my current residency is out Hectorum, and it could always use more goods, more commerce.
He just shrugs a little bit. I don't think anybody here is particularly interested in making it big, or they wouldn't be here.
He sort of shrugs. Simply an offer. The more your goods get out, the more the word of your home gets out.
Perhaps they want the word to not be getting out as much.
Indeed, I'm not saying this as a positive, but as a neutral. It is simply a byproduct of trade.
Unless they make a
Although-
deal with us directly. Imagine if we got all of our household goods directly from this town instead of going through middlemen.
But how would our goods get to Hectorum? It's 2 weeks away by horse and cart.
And he sort of chuckles to Hate. I am the middleman, Hate.
Hate dramatically pulls out her coin pouch, opens it, lets the dust come out, and she looks very clearly at Darius and says, "I know."
Well, I imagine that once we're all settled, we should probably be getting back on the road. We still have a good half day's travel ahead of us to reach before we can reasonably stop.
Aye. And then he turns back. And to answer your question in a vein that you originally asked, yes, I think we could use some supplies for the road.
What you looking for?
Sorry, can you say? he sort of
You like
looks
that?
He sort of looks to the party. I haven't actively kept track of our food stocks. Are we all right on food for the journey there and back?
We have about a week's food at this point, as I recall.
What charge you for rations? Or general food goods, if not rations?
How far you said you were going, Korheim?
We're heading to Korheim at the moment.
Figured. You got only the 5s of you, or does the blue one have to eat too?
Hey, he'll eat pretty much anything on the road, so. If he even has to eat, I don't necessarily know if he does or doesn't. That's a question for. And he sort of points to Pop.
And then he stops for a second and he kind of looks at Lorik and then he kind of looks at Vermilion and he says, "Not the most descriptive. Yeah, I figured for just over a gold I'd be willing to part ways with enough."
I have an offer for you. It might not actually be worth the money itself. Would you like a crossbow? I've been carrying this for months now, and I haven't had any use for it.
He looks over. Yennefer? And she just kind of sighs and moves over. Hey, and just holds out her hand, kind of looking away from you.
This was Hate's master plan.
I genuinely just looked at my character sheet and I was like, wait, I have useless weight on here. Take this crossbow.
My inventory has no pathetic items.
She looks at it and...
And
like,
It's-
is it just a crossbow?
it's literally just a light crossbow. I just happen to have one and a full set of crossbow bolts, and I have not used it once in this entire campaign.
Imagine fighting at range, Lamau.
Yeah, that's what Sacred Fire is for.
She looks at him and she says, "It's a crossbow." And just kind of gently puts it back in Hate's hand.
Ooh, she put it gently. Hate might have a chance.
Oh, jeez.
Would it be considered an affront to the holy power that infuses me, that allows me to use Sacred Flame, to instead of having a tinderbox, light all of my torches with a blast of Sacred Flame?
I wouldn't think so. I'd imagine that whatever procures the flame is probably interested in the burning of items.
And even if it were an affront, would that matter to you?
I wanted you to say yes, because if you said yes, then I was absolutely also going to leave my tinderbox here.
Darius is just like watching this attempted bartering unfold. he's very.
Ah, yes.
Attempt at bartering.
Negotiator.
I am in
Hey,
Furnace, the god of burning things. Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean, do I mind if you light it on fire? My name's Infernus! What the fuck do you think I'm here for? Yes, light it on fire!
Wait, but this is important, Infernus. I want to burn just this flammable part, but not the part that I hold.
You're burning it.
Just
Burn
the flammable
it!
part.
Just burn it!
It's like, it's important. Like, I
Yeah,
need
no,
that.
no. You see, this is the problem. You're still talking.
Then burning.
Just burn it. Only
I'll have
burning.
you-
Only burning.
I'll cast like
Only
4,000
burning.
spells if my hand gets burned by this. I want you to know.
Just burning.
Burn.
See, Lothair understands exactly how fucking annoying dealing with these guys are.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, if they don't, if it's just like a regular light crossbow, and I'm genuinely, Hate has 2 goals here. 1, leave the crossbow, and 2, not leave with the crossbow. Those are the only 2 goals.
You want to leave the crossbow here, and you want to leave without the crossbow.
Yep.
She just shrugs and says, 2 silver?
Sure, why not?
She just takes it out from one of the small little pouches alongside her waist and just tosses the both of them over and, walks out.
Darius
Right.
just crosses his arms. As the metal man, I'll take that silver for the rations.
I know where you sleep.
Ah!
Frankly, we all
Bold of
do.
you to assume I sleep.
Darius, I literally woke you up so that you could take your shift at the watch 2 days ago.
Did you?
So anyway, I'm fine with it being used to buy rations. You know.
I'm joking.
Just
Keep your
don't
silver.
expect.
In any case, I expected a less favorable deal. Maybe you're rubbing off on her, Darius.
I mean, I did nothing to help, so.
Alright, but maybe she is a little bit better at negotiating than she would be otherwise.
After about
Raw
2 minutes,
honesty
you
that
see
I
that
am
she comes back with, like, basically everything of the crossbow that wasn't the metal holding, like, parts of it together. And she puts the wood underneath the burning pot to continue heating the rest of it.
That's more use than I was going to get out of it.
What really sells well isn't products, but labor. But regardless, back on track. It would be an affront to haggle a price lower than that. I'm very grateful for this. And he just pulls out a gold coin and hands it over to him.
Who is him?
The guy that we were talking about supplies with and then got completely fucking derailed.
Ah, yes, of course. He even has to... Ah, yes.
Rations.
When were you planning on leaving?
Probably later in the date. Sometime around... What time is it now?
It's roughly midday. We could wait maybe 2 or 3 hours.
Sounds about right.
You hear the one just outside the door is the humans trying to convince the Furbolg to tell him where he moved the beer to.
There was beer?
Not out and about.
Kate's on a mission now.
You hear the human exasperatedly just yell, "The roof!" After like a couple seconds. Why would you put it on the roof? Because then Yoda wouldn't be having it.
Well, seems like we're
Roof
having a good
beer.
time out there.
Say, have you an alchemist in town?
Have we done anything with our roof? Roof beer.
The tiefling raises her hand a little bit. I'm the closest thing you get to it. These two. When we say it's small, we mean the 5 of us.
Do you have any experience in breaking down different alchemical mixes into their baser parts for reuse?
Only for metals.
All right.
What you need?
I was just curious if you were willing to buy some poisons that I've recently acquired, break them down, potentially reuse some of the materials for more helpful potions and effects.
You said Korheim, right?
Aye.
One of the people I studied with there did a fair bit of that. You want to know them?
Sure.
She ends up telling you a name, and I'll give you the details later.
All right. Greatly appreciated.
I would also like those details because I'm gonna give him 3 ice lizard tails.
After she tells you the details, she's like, and don't thank me yet. He's fun. I gotta get back to work. And she moves and just reaches up, pushes Fenric out of the way, even though he's totally not in the way at all, before continuing to move up.
I look forward to it, as she's already gone.
Fenric ends up moving back in very much in the Sisyphus hand on top of head, and a little bit confusedly pose for a moment before moving over and actually getting some food for himself.
And he lives all the way out here instead of, in Hectorum. Hey, it seems to have like shot back to a previous conversation, and that's all that comes out.
What?
What? Huh?
Yeah, the gods that were in her brain just like straight up, what? What are you talking about?
Just Bogo spinted the gods.
Mm-hmm.
You think Kate's about to clarify? You're wrong.
Oh, I was under no illusions that Kate was going to clarify.
And just when I thought I was rubbing off on you.
I thought we made it clear earlier that that was not happening.
Clearly my naivete got the best of me.
Or mine.
Listen, it was my naivete to believe your naivete.
Fair point.
And of course, if you're not staying too long, you're welcome to spend the night. Not that we have anywhere to house you, but
Truly do appreciate it, but we are in something of a hurry.
no harm done. Call out to me if you need me. And he kind of slowly moves around Slork, trying not to bump into him.
He turns back to Chad is stupid, name of big man.
Fenric.
After looping around, he says, "Oh, and Fenric, don't forget to put up all the tables." Aye.
If you'd like, I
Hey.
can help with that.
Oh no, I'll be more than fine. No,
Very
sorry,
good.
that's not his voice. That was Ilya's voice. Ah, no, I'll be more than fine.
It
Thank
would
you
be
for your offer, though.
Alright.
I mean, you said yourself you're busy. I wouldn't want to keep you.
Aye, but we still have to wait a couple hours for the supplies at least.
Similar.
He sighs a little bit, leans over, grabs 2 of the bags, and moves them over. Cart's yours, right? Cart outside?
Apologies. Yes, here, allow me to help. Apologies, I didn't mean anything by that statement.
Darius has his hand and he's doing the open and close with his thumb and four fingers, like talking as Lorik like stumbles over his words, trying to help.
Darius, I know what you're doing behind me.
Whatever are you talking about?
After he brings
I
the
pointed
three rather large sacks, each containing a different form of meal, it's done.
Ah, well, thank you.
Anyways, say Fenric, he says, entirely cutting Lorik off to whatever he was gonna say. I know it's premature, but are you planning to participate in the festivities again next year?
I certainly hope so. It's, I'm a little bit afraid of doing it again. If, they're not under control this time. Probably have enough Earth, come with us next time. That way, in case something happens, she'd be there to help.
It was rather unfortunate the festival was interjected in such a way. But regardless,
I just
what
don't
say you?
understand, you know? Just... It ain't so bad.
The motivations of some people are hard to discern. The best we can do is work with what we have.
I suppose.
And besides, I intend to attend next year as well.
I didn't ask you.
Well, I was just offering Fenric a little bit of sport. Maybe if we both sign up for the Battle Royale.
So you're
Okay.
stealing what I was suggesting. I was going to say, hey, how about we have a rematch? It could be fun, and then you come in and steal my thunder. Is that it, Lorik?
Well, how about this? Whichever one of us actually gets to him first in the matchups gets the match.
Or I could just beat you down.
You could try.
It pains me to do so, but should I bring up the last time we sparred?
Yes, and how long ago was that? And how much more familiar am I with your fighting style?
How
Hank
much more
looks over at
familiar are you?
Vermilion and says, 2 silver on Darius.
He puts his hands together for a moment and he's clearly thinking for a moment, trying to figure out how to say it. What makes you think only one of you'd be fighting me? Is that how I say it? Is that how it works? Yeah, that's it.
As I recall, the matchups before the Battle Royale are one-on-one, aren't they?
Well, yeah. Wait, hold on. What makes you think that I'd lose? Wait,
What?
this
When
is
did
so
I ever say
hard.
that you
How
would
how do you how do you end up doing this all the time?
Are you referring to the common or the banter? Or both, in conjunction?
The banter, it just doesn't feel right. Not to, you know.
No worries.
It helps if you learned common first from your enemies, and so those are the words you're most familiar with.
So don't listen to Hank.
No, I was on good terms with my parents. I wouldn't call them enemies, and I'm much more grateful to have them there for me in my life than to be able to say a few mean words that don't need to be said.
Think not of them as mean words that don't need to be said, but simply as motivation for us to. It's a words have more than just good and bad. You can use bad words to inspire good, and good words to inspire bad. Language is complex, and rhetoric, in particular, is a powerful force.
In any case, I wasn't saying that either of us would definitely win against you. I am rather looking forward to seeing how a match between us would end up.
Well, if he would almost beat me in a 1v1, Lorik, you have no chance.
Hmm.
And he would have beaten me one-on-one. But then again,
Again, Garrus, I
no
reiterate.
magic, so.
How often have we trained together? And how much of your fighting style do I know?
A reasonable amount.
At that, Kia kind of interjects. Oh, Darius, has the arm been any better? I hope it's been fine and not because it was rather rough. I trust it's healed well.
Hmm. Well, yes. He sort of looks at his arms. Well enough for me to wield.
And she looks at Lorik, and have you've forgiven yourself on it, right? Right? You've...
Right.
Alright. Sorry, it's out of my place to ask.
No.
No, I'll go get the paper.
Fenric, do you cast any magic?
He shakes his head no.
You'd be a damn powerful adversary if you did.
Or perhaps it's because he hasn't split his focus that he's as formidable as he is.
I think perhaps it might slow progress, but in the end, the spark of magic only increases strength.
I mean,
Physical.
Aye. But when he can't use that magic,
from what I've heard, it requires a lot of will to use magic, and quite frankly, I'm very happy where I am.
Well, I envy you.
Vermilion just kind of like cross-eyed. He just says, "I think it is because he is big."
yes, Vermilion.
No worries, shorter person. I'm sure you will be strong.
He doesn't cast magic either. Well, he does cast stab you with a knife, but
It is a good spell.
It has somatic components, material components, and even if you really want to get into it, it even has verbal components.
well, I know for sure he does.
Well, let's not bandy these terms about in front of poor Vermilion. I'm not even sure he understands half of what we're saying.
Good, yes.
That's okay, I mean... I don't understand them either, and quite frankly, it's probably for the better. I'm just glad to be able to hear these new words with all your hair.
My wit and humor are astounding, I understand.
That's not what he said at all.
As he sort of like places his hand over his forehead and leans his head back in sort of like the classic smug anime character look up.
Except here's the thing: he's not doing it ironically. All other people who do that are doing it ironically.
You know, Darius, to be entitled to that level of smugness, the statement would have to be true in the first place.
I would not say such a thing if I were not entitled.
And I'm telling you, you aren't entitled. As someone who knows you well.
You don't know me that well.
Don't I?
Take me out to dinner first.
Wait! As Vermilion just smacks his fist on the table.
Oh, I could have sworn I've done that many times already.
No, I can't remember one.
Hey, what time is it right now?
At this point, it's probably like an equivalent time in day to like 3 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah, this counts as dinner in some cultures. Hey, gets up.
Well, if we're going that far, then our good friend Fenric here has taken me out for dinner.
How much for your for just one good glass of that beer upstairs?
He kind of peeks out the window for a moment. And just seeing how much he guessed that Blundum's had. I guess Blundum never introduced himself, so that's okay. And he
Well, I
just,
guess
he gently climbs out the window and then reaches on top. You hear a little bit of draining before he just hands you a glass that he did not have in his hands a moment ago.
Are you sure you're not magic?
I'm sure I'm happy.
Yeah, hey, just like leans, looking out the window, sipping on the beer, enjoying life.
It's a very nice, calm, mid-spring breeze.
well, you leave me no choice. I'm going to have to deprive you of that ammunition when we get to Korheim.
Well,
It,
you two assume I'll accept. You seem to have scorned me so much today. I don't know if I'd take you up on such an offer.
would you roll me a d4, Hayton?
Absolutely. Swapped up, shiveled.
I know of so many gorgeous men and women in Korheim. I could spend my days elsewhere. Why should I spend it with you?
Well, considering we still don't have Paralen's exact verdict, I'm not so sure you could.
Vermilion walks up to Lorik, and he just puts his hand on his bicep and like measures it, and then like smallly pats it, and he says he like gives a. That is why, because this is good.
Oh, well, Lorik, it seems like you don't need me anymore. Vermilion seems rather interested in you.
He kind of leans down a little bit onto one knee, kneeling. And he says, "Do not worry, Vermilion. Do not let your size dissuade you. They will underestimate you."
I am aware, friend. Everyone does. No one ever see knife him back.
In any case, poor Vermilion here doesn't exactly share our mutual appreciation for Shockstop.
Oh, to give him a chance. What say you? Partake in a glass with us? Try not to die?
I have never had. Let us see. And he immediately takes a bit of it and just gulps it down.
Lork is ready with the lay on his points of view.
Would you go ahead and give me your Constitution save?
I will. There's no timeline I would ever troll a Constitution save.
Never, ever.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Like I
Yeah,
said.
+5, so that would be 22.
Does it have
okay.
to be a
He's-
+5?
He is not friendly right now.
Oh, yeah, true.
Whoa!
Schoenhoff?
What?
He rolled a 17.
Can we
Okay.
roll to a 1?
Alright.
Sure. Reroll it.
Reroll.
I don't care.
What? Okay.
Oh.
I'm bored. Reroll it.
Ooh.
Alright, that's better.
Yeah, you start off and with your first little sip that you have, you're like, that is good. That is good. And then you end up having a little bit more. And it goes pretty much within this, after about like 3 minutes, Vermilion still seems completely normal. And then about 10 seconds later, he's sideways on the floor.
At this,
Okay.
Struenhoff stands up and goes, I have some things that I need to do out by the carriage. And just walks out of the house.
Lork is
Well.
just going to lightly slap Rifter on the shoulder for 5 lay on hands points.
Do I know that Chernoff had anything to do with that, or does
Nope.
it just... Okay. In that case...
And
It leaves no signs.
I ask is it the drow? That's the, oh no, it's the tiefling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I asked the tiefling, do you mind if I borrow the road for a couple minutes?
The road?
Yes, for spell preparation.
Go for it. No, that's not our voice. Go for it.
Thank you.
So does Rifter wake back up immediately after I purge the poison from him, or...
Within like a couple seconds. Like within 4.
I'm just back up, and I like kind of like wiggle a little bit, like doom, like a pull. And I'm just like, great drink, wonderful.
And like the very first of those words sounds a little bit too similar to like a Rifter voice than like most of you would be comfortable with. As he kind of like gets into the voice like halfway through the sentence.
Vermilion, and then he goes, "We could have a mage killer poison drinking competition."
He looks at you like very confused, and then he just nods slightly.
Oh, I'm afraid that is one contest you would win.
Thank you all for the stories. And
I'm glad to have been able to share them.
I do hope to see you again sometime.
Aye, of course. Hopefully sooner than the next festival as well. We'll be stopping through here on our way back, I assume.
I hope whatever it is, it's not too dangerous.
Oh, it's full of danger, but we'll make it. We always do. And I can talk to the god of jinxes, so like I'm fairly confident that didn't do it.
Just be careful.
And
Yes.
don't worry, even if they all die, I won't.
You all seem nice, so try to keep it that way.
You know, Darius, it's probably better if either I or Lorik is the one who survives, because then we can bring the rest back.
I mean, I can too.
Not if you're visiting the collector for a few hundred years.
That's fair. I'm just saying, in the worst case scenario won't happen.
Well, by that definition, the worst case scenario is that Vermilion is the last one to survive.
I think this is the best case scenario.
I think all of you guys are failing to understand that the worst case scenario is none of you are alive.
No. That's just not possible. One of us will survive.
Yeah.
The question is just
And-
who.
Knowing how massive Lorik's health pool is, it's probably going to be him.
Knowing how massive Lorik's health pool is, it's probably going to be Slork.
True? Slork is going to outlive us all?
I wonder if the mechanism will count on hitting 0 health or on failing the last death save.
Have you not hit 0 health since?
He hit
I
like
believe-
7.
I believe I have not hit 0 yet.
He has not hit 0. He got pretty damn close when he activated Tensors, though.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to know that this really made me want to prepare harm and just touch you and see what happens.
For science.
Well, I mean, to you, I'd be dead. If I teleport away to eat any of you, I will be dead. Dude, it'd be very funny if Darius ends up fucking like pseudo dying and going to the collectors, and then can reoccur in the next campaign because of it.
Wait, are we doing anything? Because if not, and by we doing anything, I mean like, are we expecting anything to happen in the next day? Because I kind of want to yell at a Celestial in person.
I imagine that that's something I hate saying in character.
This is absolutely being said in character.
What does
I don't
in
have any
person?
objections to that.
What does in person entail?
Well, lots of different things, and then I cast Conjure Celestial because I want to see what comes up.
Oh my lord, do we have to do this here with?
You know, fair point. It takes a minute to cast, and so I leave and then actually start casting it. You know, over here.
He follows. I meant while we're visiting a town. All right, whatever.
So, Hate, do you still have that chart I gave you?
I do still have that chart you gave me. That's amazing.
You know what? Do I still have that chart that I gave you? It's pinned, right?
It is in fact pinned.
Nah. Would you like to do it?
I will absolutely do it. Hi, good sir. Wow, I'm so happy I messed that roll up. All right.
7. You end up casting your Conjure Celestial, and over the course of a minute, nothing really happens, and then about like 6, 7, 8 seconds after you finish doing your channeling, the ground beneath you kind of shatters apart for a moment, and up comes this earthy, rocky golem almost creature.
Do you have a name?
It doesn't have a mouth.
Sometimes they speak anyway.
It doesn't have a mouth and it doesn't speak.
Does it have hands?
It does have hands.
I give it a stick. No, I give it like... I probably have something that's actually useful. I give it my spare warhammer.
As you give it your spare warhammer, it just looks at you.
And I point to the ground and I say name.
It just stomps on the ground with its foot and it carves into the ground Orta. Which I can spell out because he spelled it out. Like, he doesn't even care about the warhammer. It just being an earthen, like, elementally boy, just stomps on the ground and the ground shifts under way to form that in a small pattern, shifting the grass to the side.
I like you. Hey, I don't remember Big Guy's name, but Hate would actually, because she cared about this one. Fenric.
The one who you... Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one. Do you have any use for about a little bit under an hour of earth manipulation?
Irrigation?
Yeah. We're gonna be here for at least that long. And she pats the fighter that she just summoned on the shoulder.
So, Lorik, you see as, like, this earthen elemental kind of crawls out of the ground. What do you do?
Lorik probably looses a small string of whispered obscenities in Draconic and shakes his head at Hate.
Hate's gonna follow and commit this Celestial to some work. Good old-fashioned helping the people.
True.
It's work. Do. It's what's for working. Is the elemental's getting his mom on?
I don't exactly approve of dealing with icons in this sense, but on the other hand, she is depriving the icon of its servant, even if only temporarily.
I like this one. I'll remember his name.
So I guess in the future, if you end up calling one of the lesser ones by name, you can probably roll a d20, and if it's like one of the higher numbers, it'll just like do what you wanted. How's that?
Yeah, that works. Oh, she'll actually hand him her warhammer very slightly, like, and be like, the new one, and just ask, is there any small details that you think that you would like to add?
On like the face scully area of it, he kind of presses on it a little bit, and it pretty much instantly forms to be much more like textured. It's more of like a, you know how sometimes on the edges of wooden tables you can just have a basic in there versus one where it's like 6 different cuts to make a single shape of a cut?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that where it just goes in and it just presses on it, and it kind of conforms to be much more like where there's one line, there's now 3 that kind of provide that same kind of shade.
Yep. This was a good choice to waste a spell for a day.
It's not like we're gonna get attacked or anything, /S.
Listen, that's why I have Planar Ally for. Because that one, I can just ask for God to help.
Strunov's still doing his spell over on the side.
Is it just me or did Slork get bigger?
I think that's the point.
Nah, oh yeah, he did get bigger.
It's what he does every time he casts the spell.
Yeah, see, I thought y'all already noticed that, and I just wasn't commenting on it.
He shall devour the world.
Freck, I did not mean to do that.
For
Man, isn't it
context,
great, Vermilion, that you didn't accidentally learn how to cast this spell?
this is original Storic size.
Yo.
I just realized that my mic was on mute. Vermilion is just like, I do not know why you say this.
I just couldn't deal with it not being straight.
Well, Darius can't deal with things that aren't straight. Who knew? Maybe that's where the self-loathing comes from.
Doing your mom, doing your mom.
I'd say one more level and Storic can probably be officially classified as a large creature.
Dog.
Pretty sure he's technically bigger avatar-wise than Fenric.
Yes, but he's also very, like, short.
If he gets classified as large at 8th, then what happens at 9th?
He's
He
still
devours the
large.
world.
Game over.
Game over, man.
At summoning level 10, summons a greater Slork with even more devouring potential.
You can send me the new stat spread later.
I mean, the stat spread's always the same. It's just the linear increase where each of the ones listed, where it says X level or plus level.
Let me find it.
So he's got his +1 to hit and +1 to damage and all that. I believe it's pinned. Is there anything else the party would like to do before they depart to the town?
I'm good.
Not I.
Can't think of anything myself.
The irrigation ends up turning out very well before it recedes into the ground as its timer expires.
I've officially made it to Angel Summoner status.
8, would you like to roll me a religion check real quick with advantage?
Oh, that sounds great. There we go, 17.
17, good enough. You remember how we talked about the, like, high elemental celestial plane or whatever back on the genie floor?
Mm-hmm.
How, like, they were a rogue from that kind of, like, court?
Yes.
Yeah, it's, that kind of angel.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just need a few more levels, then I can solve all of my problems just by casting Conjure Celestial. Never have to worry about anything else. Make it to full Angel Summoner mode.
No, very unwise.
No, unwise is when I start spamming Planar Ally, because then I have to offer it things like, hey, do you want my soul? Just do this task for me.
Hey, do you want that guy over there who's a board disguised as a fish?
Yo,
Who that
can I
could be.
sacrifice my friend's souls for Planar Ally? Well, they wouldn't really be my friends at that point. That wouldn't be very neutral good.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, that all depends on how willing you are to change your alignment.
Wait, back when Darius's soul was effectively a non-entity, would it have been considered cheating the Planar Ally to promise them Darius's soul?
It would probably be cheating someone.
Something is definitely happening.
Could you imagine if a Telltale game was just like, somebody's gonna remember that. We don't know who, but somebody will.
Someone will remember that. Anything else we'd like to say to the people who are watching us so bravely out and about before we close the stream?
Your mom gay.
Hate's probably gonna summon a very, very bad thing to our plane one day, and it's not her fault.
Next thing you hear, it's just gonna be a 1 or a 2. Man,
So divine intervention again to summon the Terminator?
imagine how funny that would have been if it was a 1 here. That would have been funny.
She just summons the Terminator again.
Anyway, thank you all for showing up. Hope you're still coming down, bud.
We actually have a regular watcher.
1. It's in
Wow.
VOD, but that's enough. And it makes me happy.
Man, you know what I was thinking?
We have
I
one
just
or two
realized.
regular. Sorry.
Hate has already 3 ways of summoning creatures that are all about equally as reliable. Equally as reliable times effectiveness. The more effective they are, the less reliable they get.
Sounds like balancing to me. Look forward to catching you guys not next week, because next week's the bye week, but the week after that. I will promise you that I will have enough content for Korheim for us to charge bravely.
Absolutely. Since next week's the bye week, do you guys want to do the Slimes and Sorcery fight I've been prepping?
Sure.
That sounds good to me.
I will temporarily say that I am more likely a yes than no, but I have to check my schedule.
I need to use this bye week for a scheduling for NGS.
Sounds good. Catch you guys later. Adios.
Yeah, peace.